Maya Chen always walked with her head down, not because she was looking at her phone or watching her step, but because somewhere along the way, she had learned that being invisible was safer than being seen. At 32, she had perfected the art of blending in. Her desk at the marketing company sat in the back corner, tucked between a dusty filing cabinet and a dying plant that nobody bothered to water. She liked it there. Safe, quiet, out of the way. Every morning, Maya would slip into the office at exactly 8:45, 15 minutes before anyone else arrived. She would make coffee in the small kitchen, always cleaning the machine afterward, even though she was usually the only one using it. Then she would settle at her computer and work on campaigns that would make other people shine. Her ideas were good. Actually, they were brilliant. The smartphone campaign that increased sales by 30% last year, that was hers. The social media strategy that went viral and earned the company its biggest client, also hers. But when presentation time came, Maya would hand her work over to David, her colleague who had joined the company 6 months after her but somehow always ended up in front of the clients. "You're so much better at presenting than me," she would tell him with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. "I'm just not good with people." David would nod and take credit without hesitation. Maya told herself she didn't mind. She preferred working behind the scenes anyway. At least that's what she had convinced herself to believe. Her wardrobe reflected her desire to disappear. Beige blazers hung next to navy pants in her closet. Gray sweaters folded neatly beside cream-colored blouses. Colors that whispered instead of spoke. Colors that said, "Please don't notice me," in every shade of forgettable. Maya lived in a small apartment on the 4th floor of a building where nobody knew their neighbors. She would climb the stairs quietly, keys ready before she reached, her door slipping inside like a shadow. Her evenings were spent reading books about strong women who changed the world, all while wondering why she couldn't find the courage to change her own life. For 3 years, she had been dating Tom, a software engineer who worked long hours and spoke even less. Their relationship was comfortable in the way that old furniture is comfortable. Not exciting, not passionate, just there. They would meet for dinner every Tuesday and Saturday, always at the same restaurant, always ordering the same meals. Tom would talk about code and servers while Maya nodded and asked polite questions she didn't really care about. She thought this was what love looked like. Quiet, predictable, safe. The promotion she had been working toward seemed within reach. For months, her supervisor Linda had hinted that Maya was next in line for the senior marketing position. Maya had stayed late countless nights, perfected every campaign, and even started speaking up more in meetings, though her voice still came out as barely more than a whisper. Then everything fell apart in the span of one terrible week. It started on a Monday morning when Maya arrived at work to find Tom sitting in the lobby. This was strange because Tom never came to her office. He looked uncomfortable, shifting in the leather chair like he wanted to be anywhere else. "We need to talk," he said, not meeting her eyes. They walked to a coffee shop down the street. The same one where they had their first date 3 years ago. Tom ordered black coffee. Maya asked for tea she didn't want, just to have something to do with her hands. "I've been thinking," Tom began, stirring his coffee even though he never added anything to it. "We're different people now than when we started dating." Maya felt something cold settle in her stomach, but she nodded like this made perfect sense. She had become very good at agreeing with things that hurt her. "I think we should take a break," Tom continued. "I need to figure some things out." The words hit her like a gentle slap, not violent enough to make a scene, but sharp enough to sting. Maya smiled the same smile she used at work when someone else took credit for her ideas. "Of course," she heard herself say. "I understand." But she didn't understand. Not when Tom packed his few belongings from her apartment that evening. Not when she learned from a mutual friend 2 days later that he had already moved in with a coworker named Jennifer, who laughed loudly and wore bright red lipstick. The second blow came on Friday afternoon. Linda called Maya into her office with a smile that seemed too bright, too apologetic. "I have some news about the senior position," Linda said, gesturing for Maya to sit down. Maya's heart jumped. Finally, recognition for all her hard work. Finally, a chance to step out of the shadows. We've decided to go with David, Linda continued. He really impressed the board with that smartphone campaign presentation. The smartphone campaign. The one Maya had created, developed, and perfected before handing it over to David because she wasn't good with people. Maya nodded, the same automatic response she had perfected over the years. That's wonderful. David will do great. You're taking this so well, Linda said, looking relieved. I was worried you might be disappointed. Disappointed. Such a small word for such a crushing feeling. That night, Maya sat on her bathroom floor, still wearing her beige blazer and navy pants from work. The rejection letter from the promotion committee lay crumpled in her trash can. She had read it 3 times, looking for some explanation that made sense. The letter praised her work ethic and creativity, but mentioned concerns about her leadership presence and communication skills. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw a stranger. When had she become this person? When had she learned to make herself so small that even her own reflection seemed surprised to see her? The apartment felt different without Tom's presence. Not empty in a sad way, but empty in a way that made her realize how little space she had been taking up in her own life. His coffee maker was gone from the counter. His pile of technical magazines no longer cluttered the coffee table. But somehow, the space felt larger, like a room after you remove furniture that was too big for it. Maya stayed on the bathroom floor until 2 in the morning, when she heard her neighbor's key in the lock next door. It was Jessica, her best friend since college, who had moved into the apartment next to hers 6 months ago. Maya had been grateful for the coincidence, though she rarely took advantage of having her closest friend so near. Jessica knocked softly on the door. Maya, I saw your light on. Everything okay? Maya almost said yes. The word was ready on her tongue, the same automatic response she gave to everyone about everything. Instead, something broke inside her chest, and she started crying for the first time in months. Jessica let herself in with the spare key Maya had given her and found her still sitting on the bathroom floor. Without asking questions, Jessica sat down beside her, right there on the cold tiles, and waited. I don't know who I am anymore, Maya finally whispered. When did you last know? Jessica asked gently. Maya thought about this. She tried to remember the last time she had felt truly herself, truly alive, truly present in her own life. The memories felt distant, like looking at photographs of someone else. I can't remember, Maya admitted. Jessica was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked the question that would change everything. When was the last time you did something that scared you? When was the last time you felt truly alive? Maya couldn't answer. She couldn't remember ever doing anything that scared her, at least not intentionally. She had spent so many years avoiding fear, avoiding risk, avoiding anything that might make her stand out or fail or be judged. Maybe, Jessica said carefully, it's time to try. That night, after Jessica left, Maya lay in bed staring at the ceiling. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about work or Tom or all the ways she had disappointed people. She was thinking about Jessica's question. When was the last time she felt alive? The question followed her into sleep and was waiting for her when she woke up. It would follow her for weeks, growing louder each day until she couldn't ignore it anymore. 3 months passed like a blur of gray mornings and quiet evenings. Maya went through the motions of her daily life, but Jessica's question echoed in her mind constantly. When was the last time you felt truly alive? She started noticing things she had never paid attention to before, like how the woman at the coffee shop always smiled when she ordered her usual tea, but Maya had never smiled back, or how her coworker Lisa would invite people to lunch every Friday, but Maya always found an excuse to eat alone at her desk. The apartment felt different too. Without Tom's things scattered around, Maya began to see how little of herself existed in her own space. The walls were white. The furniture was beige. Even her books were arranged by size instead of by what she actually wanted to read. It was like living in a hotel room where someone else had decided what kind of person she should be. One evening in late March, Maya was scrolling through social media when an advertisement popped up on her screen. The image showed a group of people sitting around a campfire in the mountains, their faces glowing with something Maya couldn't quite name. Joy? Freedom? The headline read, "Reclaim your power weekend retreat. Step into your authentic self." Maya almost scrolled past it. These kinds of things weren't for people like her. She was practical, sensible. She didn't believe in life coaches or self-help retreats or any of that stuff, but something made her pause. Maybe it was the woman in the center of the photo, who looked about Maya's age but radiated confidence in a way that seemed both foreign and familiar. She clicked on the link. The retreat was run by someone named Dominique Laurent, a former Broadway performer who had become a life coach after what the website called her own journey of self-discovery. The description talked about helping people shed the layers that no longer serve them and reconnect with their authentic power. Maya read every word on the website twice. The retreat was happening in 2 months at a center in the mountains, about 3 hours from the city. It was a weekend program, Friday evening through Sunday afternoon. The cost made her wince a little, but she had savings. She had always been good at saving money, mostly because she never spent it on anything interesting. For a week, Maya bookmarked the page and did nothing else. She would look at it during her lunch break, studying the photos of people who seemed so comfortable in their own skin. They looked like they knew secrets she had never learned. They looked alive. "What's that?" Jessica asked one evening when she stopped by with takeout Chinese food. She had gotten into the habit of checking on Maya regularly since that night on the bathroom floor. "Nothing," Maya said quickly, closing her laptop. But Jessica had already seen the screen. "A retreat? Maya, that's amazing. Are you going to sign up?" "I don't know," Maya admitted. "It's probably not for me. I'm not really the retreat type." Jessica sat down on the couch beside her. "What's the retreat type?" Maya thought about this. "I don't know. People who are brave, I guess. People who aren't afraid to make fools of themselves. You know what I think?" Jessica said, stealing a piece of Maya's orange chicken. "I think you're braver than you realize. You just haven't had a chance to prove it to yourself yet." That night, Maya lay in bed thinking about bravery. She had always thought brave people were the ones who climbed mountains or started their own businesses or moved to foreign countries without knowing the language. It had never occurred to her that signing up for a weekend retreat might require its own kind of courage. The next morning, Maya woke up with a strange feeling in her chest. It took her a moment to recognize what it was. Excitement. She couldn't remember the last time she had felt excited about anything. She opened her laptop before she could change her mind and filled out the registration form. When it asked why she wanted to attend the retreat, she stared at the blank text box for 10 minutes. Finally, she typed, "I want to remember who I am." The confirmation email arrived within an hour. Maya read it 3 times, her heart beating, faster each time. She had done it. She had actually done it. In 6 weeks, she would drive to a mountain retreat center and spend a weekend with complete strangers, trying to figure out how to be herself. The weeks leading up to the retreat passed, in a strange mix of anticipation and terror. Maya caught herself daydreaming during work meetings, imagining what the weekend might be like. Would there be embarrassing exercises where she had to share her feelings with strangers? Would she be the only one who didn't know how to reclaim her power? Would she chicken out at the last minute? She researched everything she could about Dominique Laurent. The woman had performed in 3 Broadway shows before a car accident ended her dancing career. Instead of giving up, she had reinvented herself as a life coach, helping other people find their own strength. In interviews, she talked about the difference between performing a role and being authentic. "For years, I was playing characters. On stage," she said in one video Maya watched, "but I was also playing a character in my real life. The retreat work began when I started asking myself, who am I when I'm not performing for anyone else?" Maya understood this more than she wanted to admit. She had been performing the role of good employee and easy girlfriend and low-maintenance friend for so long that she had forgotten there might be anyone else underneath those roles. 2 weeks before the retreat, Maya did something that surprised even her. She went shopping for new clothes. Not work clothes or practical clothes, but clothes that made her feel something. She bought a soft purple sweater that brought out her eyes. She found a pair of jeans that actually fit her properly instead of hiding her shape. She even bought a bright blue scarf that felt completely impractical and absolutely necessary. The night before she was supposed to leave for the retreat, Maya packed and unpacked her bag 3 times. She included the purple sweater and the blue scarf along with comfortable shoes for walking and a journal Jessica had given her as a good luck gift. "You don't have to become a different person," Jessica had written in the journal's first page. "You just have to remember who you already are." Maya set her alarm for 6 in the morning, planning to leave early for the 3-hour drive. But she barely slept. Every time she started to drift off, her mind would race with questions and worries. What if she didn't fit in? What if she was too broken to fix? What if she spent all that money just to confirm that she was as boring and hopeless as she feared? At 5:30, she gave up on sleep and made coffee. She stood by her kitchen window, watching the sun rise over the city, and tried to remember the last time she had seen a sunrise. She couldn't. The drive to the retreat center became a meditation on change. Maya had programmed the GPS to take the scenic route instead of the fastest one. She wanted to see new places, breathe different air, maybe understand why she felt like she was driving toward something important instead of just away from her regular life. As the city buildings gave way to suburbs and then to rolling hills, Maya felt something shifting inside her chest. Each mile from home felt like permission to be someone new. Or maybe not someone new, but someone she had forgotten she could be. She turned the radio up louder than usual, then louder still. When a song she loved came on, she sang along for the first time in months. Her voice sounded rusty but real, filling the car with something that felt dangerously close to joy. By the time Maya pulled into the retreat center parking lot, her hands were shaking, but she was there. She had actually driven 3 hours to a place where she didn't know anyone, to spend a weekend doing things that scared her. As she grabbed her bag from the back seat, Maya caught her reflection in the car window. For just a moment, she looked like someone who might have interesting stories to tell, someone who might surprise herself. The retreat center looked nothing like Maya had imagined. Instead of some fancy spa with perfect lawns and meditation gardens, it was a collection of rustic cabins scattered around a small lake. The main building was built from logs and stone, with wide windows that reflected the mountains behind it. It felt real in a way that surprised her. Maya parked her car and sat for a moment, watching other people arrive. There was a woman about her age carrying a guitar case and wearing boots that looked like they had walked 1,000 miles. An older man with paint stains on his fingers was unloading art supplies from his truck. A couple in their 50s held hands as they walked toward the main building, laughing about something only they understood. Everyone looked so normal, so human. Maya had been expecting people who had already figured everything out, but these looked like regular folks who were just as lost and hopeful as she was. Inside the main building, about 20 people were gathering in a large room with wooden beams and a stone fireplace. Maya found a chair near the back and tried to make herself invisible out of habit, but the space felt different from office conference rooms or lecture halls. The chairs were arranged in a circle instead of rows, and there was nowhere to hide. Dominique Laurent entered the room like she owned the air around her. She wasn't tall or particularly striking, but something about her presence made everyone pay attention. She wore simple black pants and a flowing top, no jewelry except for small silver earrings. But she moved like music, each step deliberate and graceful. "Welcome, everyone," she said, her voice carrying easily through the room without being loud. "I'm so glad you're here, and I know some of you are terrified." A few people laughed nervously. Maya realized she was holding her breath. "Fear is good," Dominique continued. "Fear means you're about to do something important. Fear means you're about to grow." She asked everyone to introduce themselves and share one thing they hoped to discover during the weekend. Maya's stomach clenched as they went around the circle. She had always hated these kinds of exercises. The woman with the guitar was named Claire. She talked about losing her joy for music after her divorce, and wanting to remember why she fell in love with singing in the first place. The older man, Robert, said he had spent 40 years as an accountant and wanted to know if it was too late to become an artist. When it was Maya's turn, her mouth went dry. 20 pairs of eyes were looking at her expectantly. In meetings at work, she would usually pass or say something generic about teamwork. But something about this place, these people, made her want to tell the truth. "I'm Maya," she said, her voice smaller than she intended. "And I think I've forgotten how to be myself." Dominique nodded like this was the most reasonable thing anyone had said. "What does being yourself feel like, Maya?" The question caught her off guard. She had expected to just say her piece and move on. Now everyone was still looking at her, waiting for an answer she didn't know how to give. "I don't know," Maya admitted. "I think that's the problem." "That's not a problem," Dominique said gently. "That's a starting point." The first day was full of exercises Maya would never have imagined doing. They did something called authentic movement, where everyone closed their eyes and moved however their body wanted to move. Maya stood frozen for the first few minutes, terrified of looking foolish. But gradually she began to sway a little, then step from side to side. It wasn't graceful or beautiful, but it was hers. They paired up with strangers for listening exercises, taking turns sharing stories they had never told anyone. Maya found herself telling Claire about the promotion she had lost, and how she had been giving away her best ideas for years. Claire listened without trying to fix anything or offer advice. She just listened like Maya's story mattered. "You know what I heard in your story?" Claire said when Maya finished. "I heard someone who's incredibly generous, maybe too generous with the wrong people." That evening, they gathered around a fire pit behind the main building. Dominique talked about the difference between who we are and who we think we should be. She shared her own story of performing on Broadway, how she had been living her dream but felt empty inside because she was always trying to be perfect instead of real. "The stage taught me how to perform emotions," she said, her face glowing in the firelight. "But I had to learn how to feel them. There's a difference between playing confident and being confident, between acting happy and finding joy." Maya thought about all the times she had performed being fine when she wasn't fine, all the times she had acted like she didn't mind when she minded very much. On the second day, Dominique introduced the exercise that would change everything for Maya. She called it the authentic self-reveal. The group would take turns standing in the center of the circle, and each person would have the chance to symbolically shed the masks they wore in their daily lives. "This isn't about taking off your clothes," Dominique explained clearly. "This is about taking off the costumes you wear to hide your true self, the roles you play that don't serve you anymore." Maya watched as others took their turns. Robert took off his watch, saying it represented 40 years of living by other people's schedules instead of his own time. Claire removed her wedding ring, which she had kept wearing for 2 years after her divorce because she was afraid people would pity her for being single. Each person shared what they were releasing and what they wanted to embrace instead. Some cried, some laughed, some did both. Maya had never seen strangers be so honest with each other. When Dominique called her name, Maya's heart started racing. She wanted to say she wasn't ready, that she needed more time, but she found herself standing up and walking to the center of the circle. 20 faces looked at her with kindness and encouragement. These people had shared their own fears and failures over the past day and a half. They weren't judging her. They were rooting for her. Maya looked down at herself. She was wearing her new purple sweater, but over it was a beige cardigan she had thrown on that morning out of habit. The same kind of neutral, forgettable layer she always wore. "This cardigan," she said, her voice shaky at first. "I wear things like this to disappear, to make sure nobody notices me or expects anything from me." She took off the cardigan slowly, like she was peeling away years of conditioning. "I'm always saying sorry for things that aren't my fault. Sorry for taking up space, sorry for having ideas, sorry for existing." Her voice was getting stronger. "I give away my best work because I'm afraid people will think I'm showing off if I take credit for it. I stay in the back of meetings and let other people get promoted with my ideas because I think being invisible is safer than being seen." Maya looked around the circle. Everyone was listening like her words mattered, like she mattered. "I'm tired of being sorry for being me," she said, and realized she meant it completely. She took off her practical flat shoes, the ones that kept her grounded, but also kept her small. These represent playing it safe, never taking risks, never doing anything that might make me stand out or fail or be judged. Standing in the center of the circle in her socks, Maya felt more exposed and more real than she had in years. "I want to stop hiding," she said, her voice clear and strong now. "I want to stop giving my power away to people who don't even know they're taking it." The group sat in silence for a moment, holding space for her words. Then Robert started clapping, slowly at first, then everyone joined in. But it wasn't polite applause, it was celebration. They were celebrating her courage to tell the truth. When Maya sat back down, she felt different. Lighter, but also more solid. Like she had been carrying around a heavy costume for so long that she had forgotten what her actual body felt like, underneath. That night she called Jessica from her cabin. "How's it going?" Jessica asked. "I think I'm remembering something," Maya said, looking out at the lake where the moon was casting a silver path across the water. "What's that?" Maya smiled, even though Jessica couldn't see her. "I'm remembering what it feels like to take up space without apologizing for it." The final evening of the retreat arrived with a sunset that painted the mountains in shades of gold and purple Maya had never noticed before. All weekend, she had been seeing colors differently, as if someone had adjusted the brightness on the world around her. After dinner, Dominique gathered everyone outside near the lake. A large fire pit sat in the center of a circle of wooden benches, surrounded by tall pine trees that seemed to lean in like they wanted to listen too. The fire crackled and danced, sending sparks up toward the first stars appearing in the darkening sky. "Tonight is about celebration," Dominique announced as everyone found their seats. "We're going to honor the journey each of you has taken this weekend. We're going to celebrate the courage it took to come here, and the bravery you've shown in looking at yourselves honestly." Maya felt a flutter of nervousness in her stomach. She had grown comfortable with the group over the past 2 days. But something about the fire and the darkness and the way Dominique spoke made this feel more significant than the exercises they had done before. "This is what I call a rebirth ceremony," Dominique continued. "Not because you're becoming someone new, but because you're finally becoming who you've always been, underneath all the fear and doubt and other people's expectations." She explained that anyone who felt called to do so could stand and walk around the fire, symbolically shedding whatever they needed to release, and declaring what they wanted to embrace moving forward. It wasn't required, she emphasized. Only people who felt ready should participate. Maya listened as the first few people took their turns. Robert walked slowly around the fire, talking about releasing his fear of being too old to start over. He declared his intention to take art classes and see where his creativity could lead him. Claire danced around the flames, singing softly about finding her voice again, about making music for the joy of it instead of for anyone else's approval. Each person's journey around the fire was unique. Some moved quickly, like they couldn't wait to leave their old selves behind. Others moved slowly, savoring each step. Some spoke loudly to the stars. Others whispered their intentions to the flames. Maya found herself mesmerized by the ritual. There was something ancient and powerful about it, something that connected to a part of her she had forgotten existed. She wasn't religious, had never considered herself spiritual, but sitting by that fire felt sacred in a way she couldn't explain. As more people took their turns, Maya felt something building inside her chest. It wasn't fear this time, or anxiety about being watched. It was something else entirely. Something that felt like electricity and music and the moment right before you jump into deep water. She realized she wanted to participate. More than wanted to, she needed to. When Dominique asked if anyone else felt called to the fire, Maya's hand went up before her brain could stop her. Her heart was pounding, but not with the panicked rhythm she was used to. This was different. This was excitement mixed with certainty, fear mixed with joy. "Maya," Dominique said with a smile that seemed to light up her whole face. "The fire is waiting for you. Maya stood up slowly, feeling every eye in the circle on her, but instead of making her want to shrink and disappear, their attention felt like support, like they were holding space for whatever was about to happen. She walked to the edge of the fire circle and paused. The flames were beautiful and alive, reaching toward the sky like they were trying to touch the stars. The heat warmed her face and hands, and she could smell the pine smoke mixed with the clean mountain air. Then Maya began to walk. She moved slowly at first, deliberately, feeling the soft earth beneath her feet. Each step felt intentional in a way that walking had never felt before. She wasn't hurrying to get somewhere or trying to be invisible. She was simply present in her own movement, aware of her own body, claiming her own space. As she walked, Maya felt layers of old conditioning beginning to peel away like old paint, the voice that told her to stay small and quiet, the belief that her ideas weren't worth sharing, the habit of apologizing for existing. All of it seemed to fall away with each step around the fire. "I release the need to be perfect," she said, to the flames, her voice clear and strong. "I release the fear of taking up space." The words came from somewhere deep inside her, from a place that had been waiting years to be heard. "I release the habit of giving my power away to people who don't even know they're taking it." Maya felt something shifting in her chest, like a door that had been locked for years was finally opening. She kept walking, kept speaking her truth to the fire and the stars and the circle of people who had become witnesses to her transformation. "I release the belief that being seen means being judged. I release the fear that being myself means being alone." She was halfway around the circle now, and her movements were becoming more fluid, more natural. She wasn't performing for anyone, or trying to look graceful. She was just being honest with her body, letting it move the way it wanted to move. "I embrace my right to be here," she declared, her voice growing stronger with each word. "I embrace my ideas and my creativity and my voice." The fire seemed to dance higher as she spoke, as if it was celebrating with her. "I embrace the power I was born with, the power I gave away, the power I'm taking back." Maya was walking faster now, not because she was in a hurry, but because she felt like she could walk forever. Like she had finally found her natural rhythm, after years of stumbling around in shoes that didn't fit. As she completed her circle around the fire and stood facing the group again, Maya felt transformed. Not into someone else, but into a more complete version of herself. Like she had been living in black and white for 32 years, and suddenly the world had burst into full color. But it was her smile that captured the real change. It started small, just a slight curve at the corners of her mouth. Then it grew, spreading across her face like sunrise spreading across the sky. This wasn't the polite, people-pleasing smile she had perfected over the years. This wasn't the smile that said, "Please don't notice me," or "I'm sorry for bothering you." This smile came from deep inside, from a place of genuine joy and self-recognition. It was the smile of a woman who had finally met herself and liked what she found. A woman who had remembered what it felt like to take up space without apologizing, to shine without dimming herself for anyone else's comfort. Maya smiled like she owned the night because, for the first time in her life, she owned herself completely. The group sat in reverent silence for a moment, understanding they had witnessed something sacred. Then, slowly, they began to clap. Not polite applause, but genuine celebration of the transformation they had seen. Robert was wiping tears from his eyes. Claire was grinning like she had just watched her best friend win an Olympic medal. Dominique nodded with the satisfaction of someone who had helped guide another person home to themselves. Maya stood in the firelight, feeling the warmth on her skin and the solid earth beneath her feet. She looked around at these people who had started as strangers and had become witnesses to her rebirth. She felt grateful and powerful and completely, authentically herself. The fire continued to dance toward the stars, and Maya danced with it in her heart, knowing she would carry this moment with her wherever she went. She had walked around that fire as one person and emerged as another, not someone new, but someone true, someone who would never again apologize for the space she took up in the world. 6 months later, Maya stood in front of the same bathroom mirror where her transformation had begun. but she might as well have been looking at a different person. The woman in the reflection had the same face, the same dark eyes, the same features she had been born with. But everything else had changed. She was getting ready for a presentation at work, not handing her ideas over to someone else this time, but presenting them herself to the company's biggest client. Her purple blouse was crisp and professional, but it was also vibrant and alive. The kind of color that said, "I'm here and I matter," instead of, "Please don't notice me." The changes hadn't happened overnight. Maya had returned from the retreat feeling transformed, but she had also been terrified that the feeling would fade as soon as she stepped back into her regular life. The first Monday back at work, she had almost grabbed her old beige cardigan, out of habit before remembering what it represented. Instead, she had chosen the purple sweater she bought before the retreat. It was a small act of rebellion, but it felt revolutionary. The first time Maya spoke up in a meeting, her voice had shaken, but she had done it anyway, sharing an idea that had been sitting in her notebook for weeks. David had tried to interrupt her, the way he always did, but this time Maya had politely continued speaking until she finished her thought. "That's actually a really strong concept," Linda had said, looking surprised. "Maya, can you develop that further and present it to the client next week?" Maya's old self would have smiled politely and suggested that David present it instead. Her new self said, "Absolutely, I'd love to." The presentation had gone better than Maya could have imagined. The client loved her campaign concept and specifically requested that she lead the project. Within a month, she was promoted to senior marketing specialist, the same position she had been passed over for earlier. But the changes went deeper than work success. Maya had started setting boundaries in ways that felt foreign but necessary. When Lisa invited her to lunch, Maya said yes instead of making excuses. When her neighbor played loud music past midnight, Maya knocked on the door and asked him politely to turn it down instead of suffering in silence. She had even started dating again, though not in the desperate way she had before. Maya was learning to enjoy her own company first, to build a life she loved instead of looking for someone else to complete her. The apartment that had once felt like a hotel room was becoming a home that reflected who she actually was. Maya had painted one wall deep blue, the color of the lake at the retreat center. She had bought plants that required actual care and attention. She had hung up photos from her weekend in the mountains, including one of herself by the fire that Jessica had insisted on framing. The blog had started almost by accident. Maya had been writing about her experiences in the journal Jessica gave her, trying to process all the changes happening in her life. One evening, she had reread some of her entries and realized other people might benefit from hearing about her journey. She called it Taking Up Space and published her first post about the retreat on a whim. She expected maybe Jessica and a few coworkers to read it. Instead, it got shared hundreds of times. Women from around the country started emailing her, sharing their own stories of feeling invisible and wanting to change. The blog became a lifeline for people who felt the way Maya used to feel. She wrote about learning to speak up at work, about the difference between being nice and being kind, about the courage required to disappoint people who expected you to stay small. Her writing voice was honest and warm, nothing like the careful, professional tone she used at work. Within 3 months, Taking Up Space had thousands of regular readers. Companies started reaching out, asking Maya to speak at their events about confidence and leadership. The same woman who used to whisper her ideas in meetings was now standing on stages, teaching other people how to find their voice. The speaking engagements scared Maya every single time, but she did them anyway. She had learned that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was feeling afraid and choosing to act anyway. One evening in September, Maya was getting ready for a date. Not because she needed someone to validate her worth or fill a void in her life, but because she had met someone interesting and wanted to get to know him better. His name was Alex, and he was a teacher who coached high school debate teams. He had kind eyes and a laugh that made her want to tell him all her best stories. They had met at a coffee shop where Maya now went to write sometimes. She had been typing away at her laptop when he asked if he could share her table. Instead of panicking about a stranger talking to her, Maya had said yes and found herself in an easy conversation about books and travel and the difference between confidence and arrogance. Alex had asked her out by saying, "I really enjoy talking with you. Would you like to have dinner sometime and continue this conversation?" It was straightforward and respectful, and Maya had appreciated that he didn't play games or make her guess what he wanted. Now, as she applied lipstick in the bathroom mirror, Maya felt that same smile spreading across her face, the smile from the night by the fire. Not because she was going on a date, but because she genuinely liked the life she had built for herself. She was excited to share that life with someone else, but she didn't need anyone else to make it complete. The lipstick was red, bold and unapologetic, the kind of color her old self would never have dared to wear. Maya pressed her lips together and grinned at her reflection. "Look at you," she said to the woman in the mirror, "taking up space like you own it." Because she did own it. She owned her voice at work and her opinions in conversations and her right to be treated with respect. She owned her mistakes and her successes and her perfectly imperfect journey toward becoming herself. Maya grabbed her purse, a bright blue bag that made her happy every time she looked at it, and headed for the door. She was meeting Alex at a new restaurant downtown, somewhere she had never been before. 6 months ago, she would have suggested meeting somewhere familiar and safe. Now, she was excited to try something new. As she walked down the stairs of her building, Maya caught herself unconsciously straightening her shoulders and lifting her chin. She was taking up space with her whole body now, not apologizing for her height or her presence or the sound of her heels on the sidewalk. The restaurant was busy and bright, full of people enjoying their Friday evening. Maya spotted Alex at a corner table and walked over confidently, weaving between chairs and servers without once trying to make herself smaller to get through the crowd. "Maya!" Alex stood up when he saw her, his face lighting up with genuine pleasure. "You look amazing. That color is perfect on you." "Thank you," Maya said simply, sliding into her seat across from him. She didn't deflect the compliment or downplay it the way she used to. She just accepted it as truth and moved on. As they talked, over dinner, Maya found herself sharing stories she had never told anyone, not because Alex was special or magical, but because she had finally become comfortable with her own stories. She talked about the retreat and her blog and the speaking events that still terrified and thrilled her. "You know what I love about talking with you?" Alex said over dessert. "You're so present. So many people seem like they're performing all the time, but you seem like you're actually here." Maya smiled, thinking about Dominique's words from that weekend in the mountains. The difference between performing emotions and feeling them, between acting confident and being confident. "I spent a lot of years performing," she said. "I'm still learning how to just be myself." "Well, I like who you're being," Alex said, and Maya could tell he meant it. Later, as Maya walked home through the city streets, she thought about how different this felt from her relationship with Tom. She wasn't trying to be who she thought Alex wanted her to be. She wasn't shrinking parts of herself to fit into someone else's idea of the perfect girlfriend. She was just being Maya, complicated, imperfect, growing Maya, and trusting that the right person would appreciate that. Back in her apartment, Maya looked around at the space she had created for herself. The blue wall glowed in the lamplight. Her books were organized by subject now instead of size, reflecting what she actually wanted to read. Photos of friends and adventures covered the refrigerator. The dying plant from her office now thrived on the windowsill, green and reaching toward the light. Maya made herself a cup of tea and sat down to write her next blog post. She had been thinking about the difference between being liked and being respected, about how exhausting it was to constantly try to please everyone and how liberating it felt to finally please herself first. As she typed, Maya smiled, that same confident smile from the fire ceremony. She was writing for the thousands of women who read her blog, but she was also writing for her former self, the woman who had sat on this same bathroom floor just months ago, wondering who she was underneath. All the apologies and accommodations. "Dear woman who thinks she's too much or not enough," she wrote, "you are exactly the right amount of yourself. The world needs you to take up space, not apologize for it. The world needs your voice, your ideas, your particular way of seeing things. Stop waiting for permission to be yourself. Give yourself permission instead. Maya hit publish and closed her laptop, feeling that familiar flutter of,